Good morning and welcome to the Community Review. I'm Josefa Salinas, your host. Thousands of people are being released each week in California from prison, and it's more important than ever for all of us to prepare for them coming home, which means getting the resources that are required to keep them home and in place and ensuring that the barriers are not there. For so long, we've been ignoring this, and that's why the recidivism rate is so great. Joining us today is the executive director of Ronnie's House. It's a nonprofit organization leading the way in Long Beach and around reentry work, and they're now expanding throughout Los Angeles County. She's also the founder of the Long Beach Reentry Collaborative and sits on the policy committee of Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership. Shereen, it is so good to have you here. You're always leading the way in gun violence prevention, recently launching LB United for Peace, a movement that is, working to bring the community together to address gun violence at the root. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Josefa. I'm wonderful. It's so good to be back with you guys.
Oh, it
feels like family.
Well, you are family. You've been on my show over the years now. Geez, at least 10, 15 years strong. You've been for, various things. It seems like whenever there's a great fight, Shereen's right there in it, leading the way for the community. So what drives you to do this work?
I can honestly tell you, my husband, Ronnie Sinegal, who the nonprofit is named after, Ronnie's House, lost his life in 2016 to gun violence. But prior to that, he was a staunch advocate for men and women coming home from prison to ensure that they had the opportunities to stay out of prison and to build better lives for their families because of his past incarceration and what he personally overcame. So I can say love and justice are definitely my fuel for this work.
When you met Ronnie, did you know that he had been in prison?
It's such a great question, which kind of touches my soul. When I met my husband, in the first two lines, he said to me, I served many years in prison. I've overcome those obstacles. I'm a better man. I work in gang prevention. I work with youth. There's just something about you, and I want to get to know you. He led with his story. He didn't try to be anything but the man he was, and I think that's why he had me in an instant, for sure.
When you talk about the fact that he was taken from gun violence, tell us a little bit about that story and what happened so that people can understand. Because when you say gun violence is a broad term, so if you feel comfortable sharing a little bit of the story of what happened to him and how his life was so tragically taken.
Absolutely. We lived in a small area on the lake. We were working, like I said, with gang prevention, reentry work, youth prevention, and we had a couple of businesses. He was an absolute legal genius, my husband. When he was 29 years old, he fought a 3-strikes case while incarcerated, and he learned the law, and it was then that he turned his life around. He got a hung jury. He was facing 45 years to life if he lost that case, representing himself. But it was at that moment he made a decision that his life had value because it was the first time he had fought for it. For years he had surrendered it to making the wrong choices because of his beginnings that led to that and trauma, years and generations of trauma. And so on a Tuesday morning, I kissed my husband goodbye in a small town in San Bernardino, and he went on his morning walk. And about an hour later, I went to check on my husband because something didn't feel right to me. And then I found my husband, and he was just having a conversation with a friend outside of a store. We were a small town, like I said, so everyone knew each other. And I went home, and something in my soul told me to go back, and I did. And my husband was shot on the ground. And the last words that I did hear my husband say was, I can't breathe. The fight was a man-to-man argument about a basketball court in our community, and a fist fight turned into the other party taking it upon himself to take my husband's life. So it is a moment that you never get out of your head. You relive it. It constantly plays in your head to see your husband shot, to see crowds, to try to protect your husband, and the police won't let you near your husband. So I just sat a few feet away from him and just, prayed for him and let him know that I was with him and I love him. And it wasn't until I got to the hospital that they told me that he was taken from me. And from there, what a painful journey. What a painful journey.
Oh, my heart just goes out to you, Shireen. Tell me a little bit about the man who shot your husband.
The young man was a security guard. He had been previously incarcerated himself. And it's not the incarceration or being previously incarcerated that makes you make a decision to take someone's life. It's the trauma that is not healed from that incarceration. After I lost him, I questioned, like, how could someone that knows you, this man that took his life was someone that we all knew in the community. I found out that 51% of people that take each other's lives know each other. And that right there is the basis of why we have to deal with the trauma that is in the communities, that is incarcerating 1 in 3 black men and taking the lives of brown and black communities at alarming numbers. And
My heart is absolutely right there with you, and I can't even imagine that. It has to be something that, I just know the loss of my parents, and those moments you never forget, the moment that they die. And I can only imagine having your husband taken from you, especially with the work the two of you were doing, and you were so excited about it, and he was so excited about it, and so sure of the direction, and to just have it so senselessly taken is one of the reasons, I'm sure, why you stay so passionate about this. So we are here today talking with Shireen from Ronnie's House. She is the executive director of Ronnie's House, a nonprofit organization that is leading the way in the city of Long Beach around reentry work, and is now expanding to the Los Angeles County area. So, Shireen, what are some of the current recidivism rates? And for those of you that don't know what recidivism means, it means the rate of people returning to prison. They get out, they can't find jobs, they can't find the things that they need, and eventually, what do you expect people to do? What they know how to do. They go back to prison. So in California, what does the support look like when somebody's coming home, and what is the current rate of recidivism?
I'll tell you, the statistics show it hovers between 68 and 75% returning back to prison, which is unbelievable. The first 3 years being the most vulnerable, with the first year obviously being the highest rate of return. Domestic violence is up there for one of the key reasons why people are returning back to prison, which is something a local organization shared with me by the name of 10 Toes In, doing great work in Los Angeles. And that makes sense because so many men and women coming home are navigating emotions and relationships, and sometimes there could be pressure in those areas. And again, we go back to mental health. 1 in 3 black men will face incarceration in their lifetime, and the local state population of prisoners is around 117,000, and that doesn't include the federal population in California, which is around 11,000. We've got around 2.3 million people, Josefa, in prisons across the country, and with those on probation, we're hovering around 7 million being sort of under the watchful eye of either, behind bars or being managed by the probation department. It is really alarming numbers that we're seeing.
What does support look like when somebody's coming home? I know you probably talked to lots of people because your organization is so involved with reentry. I used to work in the prison, doing education in the prison with one of the school districts here. So I know that they do some prepping, but there really isn't a whole lot of prep. They kind of just toss you out the door.
Yeah, so I just had 2 individuals we work with in the past 11 months released. One had a 30-year sentence. He was in prison since he was 24, and upon release, he received a prepaid debit card of $200 and absolutely no resources, and a bus ticket if needed, and that's about it. Some of the probation officers right now, which I'm really liking the direction that the Long Beach Probation Department is going. We just started a monthly meeting with all of the reentry partners as well as the probation officers and department so that we could share with the probation officers the resources that are available so that they can share them with the people under them in probation. And so it's taken these types of alignments.
I can only imagine what somebody would feel like after being incarcerated for a period of time and coming out with no resources. But I know that this young man connected with some resources through you. Try, if you can, put it into some layman's terms that the average person might understand about what it might feel like to be in this situation.
So I want you to really think about what that looks like for the average person, never incarcerated, surviving in today's world without, let's say, a college education, or even with a college education for many times are tough. Coming out of prison, most families say they don't have the space for people to stay, so there's no housing, no jobs. And even when you get the job, a lot of apartment buildings are not accepting people with records, or a lot of jobs are only hiring for lower paying jobs for people with records. And so it's definitely set up to keep the prison full and keep the cheap labor in place, which is $1 billion industry, the prison labor that's taking place because of all of this inequity and lack of support. Now, there are many organizations doing the work, but not enough. And now with Measure J, there is going to be some significant funding coming down, and so that's progress. I am seeing a shift in how government is thinking, even though we nowhere can catch up quick enough, but I'm seeing both our local government, which we go into, shifting to support reentry. I see Supervisor Janice Hahn, which oversees our area, very much a supporter of reentry, and I'm seeing other political leaders come out to acknowledge that, the system is broken and we have to do something.
Well, I'm glad the politicians are finally realizing that how important it is, because it's our constituents and the people who live in Los Angeles, Ventura County, San Bernardino, the Inland Empire. Everyone is affected. And if you think that it's not your problem, it is, because these people who are coming out of the prison system are coming into all of our communities. Don't you want people to have services? Don't you want people to have the kind of, leg up? Give them, it's a hand up. It's not a hand out. It's a hand up. Get them into school. I know a lot of times they can finish a high school education and sometimes some college when you're in prison. But it's not the same thing as being on a college campus and being around people and reacclimating yourself to being involved in a community. And more so than ever, especially with the pandemic last year, we have found that whether you're in prison or not, mental health has been definitely just stretched to the limit. And that's why, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we've been talking all month with different people about, mental health awareness and different things that people need to do. I mean, imagine in the prison system during the pandemic. I mean, we at least, got to walk outside and maybe stand on your front porch or, wave at a family across the street while, we were down real lockdown. But imagine being in prison, and I don't know how they locked things down, but if COVID was spreading, I'm sure that they kept everybody in their cells. So the same amount of activity wasn't going on, and people were probably scared. They weren't able to get information, and that would take a toll on your mental health. So, I mean, it's imperative that aspect of all of this be dealt with, the reacclimation to society, working through family relations, marital relations, if you were married when you went in, different relationships if you're a father or a mother. Those kinds of things have to be dealt with. And that's why I would just love for you to stick around with us, Shireen, and let's talk more about this in the next segment and talk about the 13th Amendment and last year, the things that we worked on and the things that Ronnie's House has coming up.
That sounds awesome, Josef. I would love to hang around.
All right, we'll be right back, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Community Review. I'm Josefa Salinas, your host. Today we are focusing, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. There's all kinds of things we've been talking about, and today we're focusing on reentry programs and leading the way. Ronnie's House. It's a nonprofit organization that is leading the way in Long Beach and now expanding into the Los Angeles County area. Shireen is the executive director of Ronnie's House, and she's with us. And we just got done talking about her story and why she's so involved in this and some of the recidivism rates and the things that go on in prison and how when you get out, what they hand you, which isn't much. Sometimes it's just a couple $100 and a bus ticket. And they throw you out into the world. Imagine somebody just, you're somewhere away for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then when you get out, somebody hands you $200 and a bus ticket. How are you supposed to live? How are you supposed to advance yourself and get yourself back to being a strong participant in the community again? That's why reentry programs are so important. Shireen, it is so good. Thank you for sticking around and talking with us some more about this.
Thank you so much, Josefa.
So what is this? I heard that like in the 13th Amendment, slavery is still legal. What the heck?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was passed by Congress, I think January 30th or 31st of 1865, and ratified later that year, which it outlawed slavery across the nation. However, there was a quote in it that said, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. So this paved the way for the prison labor complex system, and that is making billions of dollars a year. So if you are in prison, you are considered a chattel, and you can be traded as such, which happens within the prisons. They move bodies around, and chattel is what they call prisoners, and the prison complexes are actually even set up that way under the category of real estate holding companies. Now there was something that was introduced, I believe in January, by national lawmakers to have a resolution to change that constitution, which is always more difficult to change or amend a constitution. It takes a different set of votes and support around it, but their goal is to finish what started with the 13th Amendment and completely abolish slavery, which still exists in our prison system.
Wow. That sounds like we could do a whole story on that.
Absolutely.
But, today I really want to focus on our reentry here. So, last year you and I worked to facilitate a reentry roundtable, and that brought together service providers, the government, justice was impact individuals, and, talk to us about that initiative around Long Beach and the racial reconciliation and how the work of Ronnie's House has moved reentry like to the forefront of everybody's vision and understanding that this is something that has to happen.
I'll tell you, honestly, one of the proudest moments for me to want to continue this work of my husband is when we were able to lead two roundtables with you facilitating, and that was one on reentry and one on cannabis social equity. Basically, Councilman Rex Richardson in our city moved forth an agenda item with support to host and do a racial reconciliation initiative where there were roundtables discussing inequity in housing, jobs. And from those roundtables, a racial reconciliation document was created by city staff to give recommendations to city council on where it is that we need to do the work and invest in racial reconciliation. When that moment was happening, I knew it was the moment to get reentry on the table so that it's not just, something in the back. You just check off a box. And it had been since 2017 that I've been pushing for this. And so the city was so amazingly supportive in allowing Ronnie's House to host these roundtables. And our roundtable on reentry had, I believe, 84 guests, all that have either experienced incarceration or they were government working in that sector or they were service providers, community members, and it was multicultural, and people brought their stories and their needs to the table, and it moved reentry forward, which I am so blessed to be a part of. It was just, we have a great city staff right now that is all about that equity. Well, that moved it to the next stage, and in February we hosted a roundtable in Long Beach around the economic recovery process and the importance of making sure that our justice impacted were a part of the discussion on what they need to recover from COVID. It was tough before COVID. COVID just magnified it. So that allowed us to push things forward, where the mayor about a month ago announced the upcoming economic recovery package for the city, and now reentry and gun violence are included in that funding to be able to do the work. And so we're in a space now where the heads of city departments are working with us on solutions, the staff, community, we're really creating an incredible village around reentry in Long Beach, and it is long overdue, but I'm really proud of our city around this work right now.
Now, you recently secured a contract with the County of Los Angeles because everybody realizes that you definitely are leading the way on reentry and the initiatives and the programs and the partnerships that you have pulled together make Ronnie's House just like the leading force in all of this. And I think it was Supervisor Janice Hahn that was instrumental in making available some of this information and the whole idea behind the contract. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. In 2018, Supervisor Hahn brought forth an item that it was to help small organizations scale and be able to connect mental health resources to community members. And so I applied, and many agencies did, to be a part of a cohort where they work with us to launch a 12-month idea around getting mental health services to our community. So what we chose to do was choose our justice-impacted community and create the tools to connect them to mental health resources as well as supportive wraparound services such as housing and workforce, food, and other resources. So under the contract right now, which falls in line with the work that we were moving in, is we've launched a phone line. It accepts calls 24 hours a day as well as text messages, and that is to connect justice-impacted individuals to organizations or to our in-house reentry coaches that can help them find resources, navigate their way through, whether it be housing, food, or workforce. And then June 23rd, 4th, and 5th, we will be hosting the first Long Beach Fresh Start Summit, which is a reentry summit that will bring together service providers, the government, justice-impacted individuals for 3 days of both roundtables to move work and policy forward around housing, economics, and mental health, as well as there will be time for healing for our justice-impacted, where they'll take part in meditation, healing circles, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and be basically exposed to the different resources available to them. And I'm really excited about this summit because I've just seen such incredible cooperation from the city and from our community. And then the end of July, we will be launching the Rising Entrepreneurs Academy with Cal State Long Beach's Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, where we will take our justice-impacted individuals and put them through entrepreneurship training, how to start, launch, run a business, and it'll be sort of set up like a Shark Tank where one of them will win funding at the end of it, $2,500, $3,000 to go towards their business. The thing, though, however, with everything that we're doing is that healing is at the core of this work. And so everything we do integrates healing and healing circles and work around healing, because we have found that without that foundation being in place for those that have been incarcerated and are dealing with the transition and navigating their way back into, their lives and families' lives, that is such an important tool, their mental health and the ability to cope with emotions and trauma and all that comes with it. And so we integrate that through the summit. We integrate it through the Entrepreneurship Academy. And the last thing that I'm very excited about is what you asked me earlier, is what do they get when they come out of prison, right? Who do I go to? Who can give me housing? Who can help me, support me with work? So by the end of July, we're launching a reentry website and app that will connect our community to resources that they need around housing and workforce and food resources, parenting, education, that will give them the ability as well to access mentors from their phones so that they always have the support and the guidance and the direction as they're, getting that fresh start, because that's what people deserve, really. It's a fresh start.
Absolutely it is. And it's so incredibly important that we, reach out and help these individuals once they are released from incarceration to be sure that they've got all the tools necessary in order to acclimate themselves back to society. Because isn't that what we want? Don't we want people back here with jobs and paying taxes and buying houses and, paying property taxes and, becoming active members of the community in a positive way? I think if you give people a chance, it's what I think everybody wants. But when you don't have those opportunities, you're stuck. Imagine
Absolutely.
yourself with no resources. Any one of you out there in the audience, imagine yourself with no resources. Your family, is kind of, they're like, I don't know. You're gonna have to prove to us that really want to do good. Well, how can you prove yourself if you don't have resources? So this
Yeah.
three-phase action plan that you have with the hotline, the summit, and the Entrepreneurship Academy is absolutely amazing. I'm going to give them the number real quick, and then we'll do it again at the end. Right now, if you want to access a reentry coach, mental health, food, health, sign up for the summit or other programs, you can call or text Ronnie's House Fresh Start Hotline at 888-699-3559 or log on to lbreentry.org. lbreentry.org. And of course, I'll have that everywhere for people to find. So we talked about reentry support after individuals are released. But I know you actually start the work while they are incarcerated. And that was one of the things that I saw when I was working in the prisons that was desperately needed, was the work inside to prepare somebody. To me, it should be starting like 6 months ahead of release. But how is it working, and why do you think it's important, and how are you guys involved in working in the prison system to get people prepared for being out so they don't just walk out the door and all of a sudden, bam, everything hits them?
Our goal is to begin support 24 months prior to release, because prior to release and catching them before then, we're able to establish the support system they have, any issues that they may have around mental health or physical health. It allows us to establish their interests, what their strengths are, potentially give them some advice around programs and work they can begin to be involved in prior to release. We send them books and information so that they can learn about credit prior to release and file to get their birth certificate, their social security number, so it's easier to get their driver's license when they come out, and then connecting with them to see what support in terms of family. Are they going to need housing? Do we need to help support them in rebuilding any relationships prior to release so that they do have a support system around them? Because to throw people out into the world, because that's what's happening after you've given them, as one of our clients just stated to me, this came from him. He said to me that for 10 years they told me when to eat and when to sleep and when to shower and when to go to the bathroom. They paid for the cost of everything that I had. And then all of a sudden I'm thrown into society with a bus ticket, $200, and the clothes on my back. And I am supposed to just be able to figure it out. And that is the way that the slave ship continues to stay filled for cheap labor, is that we strip our young men and women of everything, including try to take their dignity from them, and then we throw them back out into society with absolutely no support. And so we began this program called Art and Writing to Healing that combines all of that support that I talked about, their intake sheets, but it allows our men and women to write. And we're right now, 2 books have been completed that hopefully we see one out this year, one out next year. They write blogs, books, whatever they feel that they can use their experience or talent to empower, inspire, mentor, or they create art, and we pay them for the creation of the art and their writing as they're working on other life skills so that they have a way to generate revenue while they're incarcerated. And one of them that completed his book was just released, and so he was released 4 years early with a completed book and with the tools to be able to navigate his way much better than if he were to have come out without the support.
Oh, that's so amazing. And just, congratulations on being involved with that, starting the work while they're incarcerated. And, I know Ronnie's House is just going to continue to lead the way on this. So what's next for Ronnie's House? I mean, this is a massive initiative that you're a part of. Again, securing that contract with the County of Los Angeles and Supervisor Hahn and all your other partners that are involved in this initiative of reentry programs and the healing and everything that is necessary for this. So what's next? I know you got something up your sleeve, Shireen.
Right. Right now we have a great little space where people can come and work on computers and apply for jobs and, maybe play a game of chess, talk, have healing circles. But my goal right now next is to create those ultimate spaces of healing, and the spaces that can allow us to invest in our men and women coming out. I would love to open up and looking into now opening up a reentry center and eventually build housing that is comfortable, that it allows people to have their dignity and come back to society and be with their family while having the support services built into the development, such as a social enterprise to learn culinary or business or technology, have a space for, justice reform, healing spaces, because we have thousands of people being released every single week across the country, and they are mothers and fathers and wives and daughters. And if we don't help them heal, then the family will not heal, and it'll be a constant revolving door of incarceration built on years of trauma. And so I want to be intentional in being a part of creating healing spaces and spaces that can give someone a roof over their head and, with dignity, and not make them feel like they have to line up like a herd to grab whatever or take whatever is given to them. Because after a man and a woman has paid their dues, they've paid their dues. But unfortunately, in this society, they come out and at least 20,000 laws are stacked up against them. So it's time for us to work as a village to begin the healing process.
Absolutely. Again, to access a reentry coach, mental health, food, health, or sign up for the summit or any of the other programs you heard about today, you can call or text Ronnie's House Fresh Start Hotline, 888-699-3559, or log on to lbreentry.org, lbreentry.org. Again, that phone number, 888-699-3559. Shireen, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. And I know that you've got some other people that we're going to have on the show over the next few weeks talking about different aspects of this reentry program. And we are just so thankful that you are here. Please know that you have a home right here on the Community Review. I know you know that because you've been here before, and I know we're going to have you back. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Josefa, for all your work and your dedication and just your amazing support around issues of justice.
Such exciting information. Again, the phone number, 888-699-3559. You can text it or call for a reentry coach, mental health, housing, food, medical. Also, lbreentry.org, lbreentry.org. That's Ronnie's House Fresh Start Hotline. Stick around. I got a whole lot more coming up.